If not, we'll just have some weird mishmash of crap.
Welcome to Egghead Anarchy. I'm Alex.
And I'm Brian.
And you can reach me at Senior Don Gatto.
And I am at BSG Brian, both on the Twitters.
Yeah, Twitter. Or just generally just yell it out.
That's right.
Did we make this joke last time? I think we did.
Yeah. And it totally fell flat. I was like the whole Ricola thing was like the funniest thing in the world in my head. And then I said it and you clearly were like, yeah, that's not funny. I was like, okay. We have a couple news items that we're going to cover. Then we're going to go into our main topics. The news items we're going to cover are briefly the Street Fighter V updates, as well as the rumors regarding the PS 4.5.
Then we're going to talk about Batman v Superman.
Yeah. Quick teaser, I guess. What is your general thought on that? Like, if you to sum it up in like good or bad?
Good.
Okay.
Positive.
Good.
I
Yes,
would
me
say
too.
that it's a good egg.
Cool. So yeah, Batman v Superman, and then we're also going to talk about the Alison Rapp Nintendo situation. Then we're also going to cover Final Fantasy 15, and there's a lot of stuff to cover with that. So we're going to get into that. So as far as news goes, let's talk about the Street Fighter V updates really quick. Polygon had an article covering all the updates that we got at the end of March for Street Fighter V. And from Polygon, we get this info. It includes the challenge mode, which is an extensive series of tutorials for fighters of all skill levels. In addition, the patch features combo... Yeah, that's awesome. In addition, the patch features combo trials for all 16 characters, as well as various bug fixes and gameplay balance tweaks. The update also adds 8-person lobbies and a rematch option to the game's online multiplayer component. As an extra thing, Alex was available to anyone who was playing on March 30th all day. And then after March 30th, you have to purchase him. And the way that extra characters and costumes are going to work in Street Fighter V moving forward, because they've also implemented their game point store. So you'll be able to purchase characters.
Oh, so they're going for like a kind of standard since League of Legends style online market.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a free to play model, except you've already paid $60. And I've got to say, with the new update, so I actually went and I played through the challenge modes and the tutorials and all that kind of stuff over the last couple of days. And I got to say, with that stuff in place, this feels like a complete game worth $60 to me. So I don't mind the idea of extra characters, extra costumes, stuff like that, potentially costing extra money. Another thing that I think that it was a very smart move on Capcom's part is they actually held off the real money portion of the update for this release. And the reason they said was that basically it just wasn't ready. It wasn't done. So they're going to hold off. And the real money currency in Street Fighter V is called Zenny, Zenny.
Like the Mega Man currency.
Oh, is that what it is too? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Zenny's in Mega Man. I don't know which one that started in. Maybe Mega Man Legends and also Mega Man Battle Network. So it's a Capcom thing.
I wonder if maybe they're going to have this be like a cross-game thing then. Like this will start with Street Fighter V, but like Zenny will be usable in any Capcom game.
Yeah, but not Mega Man, because they hate Mega Man. They don't make Mega Man games anymore, so...
Well, yeah, because what's his name is gone, doing his own thing now. Mighty Number 9.
It's more like he left because they stopped making Mega Man games.
Oh,
from my understanding, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So just summing this up really quick before we move on to the next news item. New characters will cost 100,000 fight money, which, by the way, that does not sound good to me at all. I don't know why they called it fight money. That just sounds like...
Because you get it from fighting.
Oh, yeah, but 100,000 fight money? That sounds like, I don't know, something just silly and not real. I don't know. I don't like it.
It seems like it should be fight monies almost.
Yeah, something like that. Or like combat currency, something... I don't know, something that it makes sense when you put a a value in front of it.
Fight credits.
Yeah, so like 100,000 fight credits. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But 100,000 fight money?
Sounds a
Like,
little weird.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound right.
I do feel like that's a little bit... I don't know how I feel about that free-to-play model on top of the $60 game. It depends on how things are priced. Like, what's the real cost of a character? Is it like $5 or is it like $2?
Well, yeah, so they haven't announced that yet because they don't have... Well, as far as I know, they haven't announced that yet because they haven't implemented the real money portion of the store yet. What I'm interested to see, and I'm going to have to play Street Fighter V a little bit more to kind of get a sense of this, but I'm interested to see how long it will take to build up 1,000 fight money.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, 100,000 fight money. Like, how long would that actually take to do? If it's a realistic amount of time, then I have no problem with this because it's essentially incentive to keep playing the game. And from what I've heard, this part I've been following for quite a while with this game. And from what I've heard, Capcom saying they've been working extremely hard to try to strike a good balance where the fight money cost of characters or costumes isn't like absurdly high.
Yeah. Battlefield Heroes back in the day, I enjoyed that for a while. And they patched it eventually to the point where it was a system where you'd rent guns, like a couple of online things. So you could earn credits by playing, and then you'd like rent a gun for a week or whatever. But they made it so that way to rent a gun for a week, you'd have to play for like longer than a week.
Oh.
Eventually. So it got to the point where you just couldn't like keep stuff in your inventory. Whereas before it was like you could just have something in your inventory as long as you're playing the game pretty consistently. Like you could have stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's the danger that I see here.
Yeah.
Is
it has a lot to do with that, exactly, like what the pricing is, how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And also balance, because if they're coming out with these new characters, and if the new character is always the most powerful character, where it's like, oh, you better buy him fast or you're going to start losing immediately. You see that in a lot of stuff where it's like, here's the new flavor. You better go buy this new thing because it's the most powerful.
Yeah, how does that work in League of Legends though? Because Street Fighter is a competitive game. Like there's MLG stuff built around this. So if they were to do something like that, that would not only be bad money wise, but it would destroy the competitive market. Because if someone used the new character, they would just win all the time.
Yeah, I mean, League of Legends had a period where it was very flavor of the month. Like this month's character is very powerful, and then it gets a nerf as soon as it stops like being brand new kind of thing.
Interesting.
They kind of stopped doing that. They weren't doing it originally, then they did it for a while, and then they kind of stopped again. So
okay, yeah, so this is definitely something that we'll keep an eye on. And you know, I'm at the point now where with the updates, I feel like I can actually now I have something to do outside of get my ass handed to me online, because I can do these tutorials, I can figure out how the characters work. There's also supposed to be updates to the story mode, which I haven't tried out yet. So I'm going to keep playing this, and then I think this will be something that we'll check back in on periodically. Just summarizing really quick, extra characters cost 100,000 fight money each, and story mode costumes will cost 40,000 fight money each. Just one thing that kind of seems curious to me is it's story mode costumes. I don't know if those will be available to play, like to use in matches online. It seems like they would be, but I don't know. So anyway, moving on to the next news item. What do we got here? Oh yeah, the PS 4.5. Yes, this is going to be good. So, okay. So the info that we're getting for the PS 4.5 news item comes from a lot of different places. Lots of places have been reporting on this. The data that we're going to be referencing comes from a WCCF Tech column that was just came up 2 days ago. So basically where we're at now is there's been rumors about a new version of the PlayStation 4.
PlayStation 4 Slim.
Yeah, well, except this is updated hardware.
I mean, the Slims have always had updated hardware, pretty much. It's like when the original Killzone came out, it was like, this doesn't run unless you have a Slim, basically, for PS2. Yeah, because it would run, but it ran at like a really slower frame rate, and it had some issues, just poor performance, unless you had it on the Slim, is what I always heard.
Interesting. So yeah, so the purpose for this seems to be VR and 4K resolution. I have some real doubts about this. First of all info is pointing to the GPU being twice as powerful.
That sounds really dramatic.
Well, the problem with that is that a GPU twice as powerful will not handle graphics at the same number of polygons, textures at the same resolution, quadrupling the resolution to 4K. Because going from 1080p to 4K is not doubling the resolution, it's quadrupling it.
Yeah.
So that seems a bit worrisome to me. There's also rumors that the PS4 may be switching to a different CPU. That is terrifying, because if that happens, what are they going to do for compatibility with current PS4 games?
Yeah, it sounds like anything new will have to be, if that is the case, they're doubling the CPU and they're doing this, that stuff will either be for the new console and just won't run on the old console, or developers are going to start having to develop like they would for a PC, basically, where there's just a wider spread of what can be what your system will look like.
Yeah, the thing is, all the info that I've heard so far is saying that the PS 4.5 will play all existing PS4 games.
But will PS 4.5 games play on the PS4 is what I'm saying. And if the answer is no, then really it's just a PS5, isn't it?
And this is the problem with doing this, is best case scenario, they're going to fragment the market.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, they are introducing 2 major system upgrades around the same time. So PSVR is supposed to come out in October.
Maybe we'll just see like this generation will be really short because the NX is coming out sooner or later within the next year or two, the Nintendo NX, and maybe we'll be seeing like a PlayStation 5 basically.
I don't know. This is all very, very troubling to me. And again, this is something that I think we're going to continue to monitor as it develops. Sony's announcement about the PS4...
That was pretty St. Louis there.
So, Sony's announcement regarding the PSVR at GDC went extremely well. People loved the idea of a $399 VR head unit that would work with the current version of the PS4.
Oh, wait, no, it doesn't. Yeah, buy a new $500 PS5 to use it.
Exactly. If Sony ends up pulling the rug out from under people and saying, oh, no, you were confused, the PSVR is not going to work with the existing PS4, you're going to have to buy this new system, or you can use the PSVR with the current PS4.
But it runs at 15 frames per second. It's just like a slideshow. Yes,
you're going to have a poor quality VR experience if you use the current gen VR. I mean, there's no good way for this to go, I think. So my gut is that this is going to end very, very badly for Sony. But we'll see. Again, we'll monitor it and we'll see where it goes.
I mean, I think we're kind of thinking worst case scenario. It might not be that bad.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they can find a way to spin it. Maybe there's going to be additional differences that no one knows about right now. Maybe they'll find a way to straddle the generations well. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. The Nintendo 64 did all right with its little booster pack that you could get.
Oh, that's true.
That added some extra horsepower to the Nintendo 64. Nintendo's always been pretty good about this, actually, or pretty successful with this, because, like, the Game Boy Color, that were games that would work still on the Game Boy Color. I mean, basically throughout the whole Game Boy line, it's like, here's kind of us fragmenting the market. Here's Game Boy Color, and we're still supporting older Game Boy stuff. And some Game Boy Color games work backwards onto like the Pocket and the original Game Boy, and then some will not work backwards. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. This holiday season is going to be really interesting in the games world. But again, we'll see how it develops. So moving on to the main topics for today's episode, we have got the Alison Rapp / Nintendo issue. This is a pretty big deal, and I think that it's, as news has come out about this in the last couple days, it doesn't seem to be quite as clear cut as I think it was initially thought.
No, I think this is a wildly complex issue. And I think that what it's telling of is how we treat privacy now, and how we cannot figure out how to like handle privacy in this kind of new internet age.
That's an excellent point.
And that we're going to have to figure out some shit about how we deal with privacy. And well, let's get back to this. Let's do a little summary first for those who have not been keeping up with it.
Yeah, so really quick summary. Alison Rapp has been working at Nintendo in their Treehouse division for a long time. And she, her department was, she worked in marketing.
Yeah.
And she was also on Twitter, and she's been fairly vocal on Twitter for quite a while. And she caught the ire of the Gamergate community recently.
Maybe.
Well,
Kotaku seemed kind of wishy-washy on whether it was Gamergate or not.
Well, part of the issue with Gamergate in general, not to get off topic, part of the issue with Gamergate in general is that it's essentially impossible to definitively determine whether or not Gamergate, the group, is responsible for something. Because they're very much like anonymous.
Yeah, they're very fragmented, but there were at least a number of Gamergate commenters who were saying that this was idiotic and were coming down against Nintendo's move to fire this woman.
Very true. Very true.
And Kotaku pointed out that a number of, or at least one specific white supremacist group was the group that was targeting a lot of harassment towards her.
Yes, very true. Yeah. So basically, the specific issues that kind of caused Alison to begin receiving harassment initially were, for some reason, crap, I'm blanking on the name of the game.
It seemed like the issues that started her receiving crap was that she was a woman and she occasionally posted some feminist material.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, that's a much better way to put it. Yes.
Because what she what you were about to say is that the game Xenoblade Chronicles, right?
Yes.
It desexualized some, like, I don't know, 14-year-old character, which is an issue of... Did we talk about this last time, or is this a conversation that we had not on this podcast?
I think it was a conversation that we had, like, offline.
Japan has a habit of sexualizing younger people than the West.
Yeah, and that's really important because it's not, like, that's just part of their culture.
Yeah, and it's just skipping any value judgments for the moment.
Right.
When you translate something, that is a lot weirder here in the United States than it is there.
Yes.
And it is not unreasonable to make that call when you're translating it, to say this was not meant to be creepy or weird.
Yes.
It was just something that was supposed to pass by.
Yes.
And in an American audience is very likely to find this off-putting. So we're going to remove it because it wasn't supposed to be off-putting. We're trying to translate the original intent of this game.
Yes.
I don't really think that's an unreasonable translation decision.
Right. And the part of what was ridiculous about the whole thing beyond that is that whoever started harassing, whether it's Gamergate or somebody else, people started harassing Alison Rapp over this issue, even though she had nothing to do with the localization of the game.
She had nothing to do with it, and she actually opposed that move.
Yes. Yeah. She actually had a tweet saying that she thought the boob slider should be in the game.
So basically, she got harassed. What she was being harassed for was just not a thing that she actually did, which is why I say she got harassed for being a woman who posted some feminist stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, as this group kind of grew more and more rabid, they started digging up things from her past to try to discredit her and try to slur her reputation or muddy her reputation and just, in general, make her life hell.
And they found a college article about what we just talked about, which is how Japan handles sexualization of younger people.
Yes.
And coming out kind of saying that, what was her point? That,
well, basically it's an issue of just culture. And like she wasn't, I wouldn't say that she was overly supportive of like Japan's perspective on the matter, but it was more just, this is their perspective and it's different than ours. And just because it's something we're uncomfortable with doesn't mean we should demonize them or like, get all up in arms about it. Well, of course, that got taken out of context, and people then started claiming that she was supported pedophilia, and that went to the degree that I forget the organization, but a major member of like an anti-pedophile association. I really should look up who this was. Actually came out against her, and people and this person and then other people in this group started trying to pressure Nintendo to fire her. And I really should look this up. Crap.
And Nintendo did end up firing her recently, and they say that it is not because of this, but because it was found out that she had a second job. She was moonlighting at a second job, which was against the corporate culture, and that is why they terminated her. Oh, and that she was doing it under a false name, which is kind of interesting because that phrase, she was moonlighting at a second job, which was against the corporate culture, is very unclear whether the job she was moonlighting at was against the corporate culture or moonlighting was against the corporate culture.
Yeah, and that's where very specifically this whole thing gets kind of muddy.
Yeah. And certainly it does. I would be willing to bet that she was doing it under a false name. She also maybe tweeted some stuff that was like, yeah, whoops, was doing that, and it was against the rules.
Well, actually, according to her, it's not. According to her, yes. So according to her, where is it?
See, I thought the Kotaku article said she had deleted some tweets where she had said that she realized that she shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah. So really quick, from the Kotaku article, they have one of their updates. Part of one of that update is that Rapp claims that moonlighting is allowed at Nintendo. Nintendo, of course, says that it's not. However, they didn't say that moonlighting period is not allowed at Nintendo. What they said was that the second job that she had was in conflict with Nintendo's corporate culture.
Okay, but point is that I was trying to make is that this is probably something that Nintendo would have not noticed had this whole thing not happened. How do we treat this stuff? Because everybody has stuff that is accessible now about their life. Is it just that your opinions now are going to define like where you can get a job? Or are you just not allowed to put anything online at all for fear of this happening to you? Like, how do we treat this privacy?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I don't really know. I don't know what the answer should be to that. I don't think there is a single answer to that.
And I think that's kind of the issue here. Because a while back, what's his name? Adam Orth also got fired.
Right.
From Microsoft.
Internet guy.
And yeah, the guy who said, why don't you just have internet, you idiots? Xbox Live should always, Xbox One will always be online, and you just should get internet. Why don't you just do that?
What's the big deal?
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of retrospectively, I wonder if maybe he shouldn't have gotten fired. Like, that was a bad move, but like, his crime was more like, you know, just being an idiot.
Right. Well, and to be honest, how much do we even know about the context of when he said that? Maybe he was having a bad day and just really pissed off and fed up, and he just got out of a meeting where there was just a bunch of bullshit, and he just made one stupid tweet, and then he didn't know what to do. And I think like this is why your question is such an excellent question, and it's something that honestly I think we're going to be grappling with for the next decade.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that question gets answered by individual companies will more and more determine their health long term.
Yeah.
Even than maybe what they do. You know what I mean? Like the way that Nintendo deals with this situation with Alison Rapp won't bring the company down.
Yeah.
But this has and will affect the way that many people see them.
And it will affect the way that their employees act and feel.
Yeah.
I think kind of one of the issues is if you're an employer and you're saying stuff like, hey, we're firing this person, and it probably has something, at least a little bit to do with some shit that they said 10 years ago on the internet, you know, that everybody else in that company is now like feeling threatened. If I was working for Nintendo right now, I'd be feeling threatened. I'd be like, what if somebody like went and found my old MySpace page? I don't even remember what shit I said, but I was 13 when I had that. I bet I said something dumb, you know?
Yeah. Or I better go and remove any traces of my GeoCities account ever. Because just having a GeoCities account now will get me fired from anywhere. But like, so even beyond the firing and what happened now, what's more troublesome and just disgusting to me, honestly, is Nintendo's silence when Alison Rapp was being harassed online.
Yeah.
The fact that Nintendo did nothing to stand up for her, to support her in any way while she was being harassed by these people for things that she didn't do or say and had no input into regarding these games.
But in the same way that you said earlier that was her private Twitter account, it wasn't affiliated with her. Does Nintendo need to, or does any company need to step into the private lives of their workers? Is this the private lives of our workers? Where does your private life and your public life and your work life, like, where do those end and where should they end? Because certainly it's not your company's job to step into your life if the bar you go at has some guy who's an asshole to you every day. Like, that's your personal business, right? Like, your work shouldn't stand up for you there. So where is this line? Should they have stood up for her because she was talking about issues that had to do with their games? Because she was talking about Xenoblade Chronicles? Or, like, when should they have intervened or stood up for her?
So I think the question you ask is a fair one, but I think it also betrays the fundamental problem with this and these types of issues is that there is no, like, we don't have a good comparison for this because, like, for example, what you brought up, somebody misbehaving at a bar or somebody being inappropriate at a bar.
Clearly,
that's not a correlation to what happened here.
I'm just saying, like, something that happened in your private life like that, clearly your work would not need to be involved in that. There's no reason that they should be. But,
well, there's a boundary though.
Yeah.
And also too, I think that this has a lot to do with the ethics of, like, corporate ethics.
Yeah.
And I think that more and more that's going to be an issue simply because so much of this stuff is more public. Like, for example, and people see what's going on. Like, Nintendo, I would imagine, the more that this happens, the more that things like this happen, they will have a harder and harder time getting high caliber people to work there.
Yeah.
Simply because, like, if I'm looking at going to work at Nintendo and I know for a fact that they will in no way support me if people start baselessly harassing me, and if it's between Nintendo and Microsoft or Nintendo and Sony or Nintendo and Blizzard, and I know that Blizzard, and I've seen an example of Blizzard, let's say, publicly supporting and just saying, hey, you know what? Like, because another question is, what would they do? What would the support look like?
Yeah.
Right? So let's say, for example, that, and I'm not even going to use a real company. Let's say there's company X, Game Studio X, and one of their employees starts being baselessly harassed based on nothing they've actually said by people online.
See, I do think that in this case, a lot of the harassment did have to do with things that they were saying she did at Nintendo, which she did not do. Nintendo could have very easily at least said, she didn't work on localizing those projects. That has nothing to do with her. Like, she didn't make those decisions.
Right, and that's my point. In a general case, there's no spreadsheet for how to handle something like this.
Yeah.
But in this particular situation, there is, like you said, there is something very specific that Nintendo could have done that, would not have put them in the crossfire, that would not have, at least as far as I could see.
Everybody is always in the crossfire, basically.
Well, true. But I mean, like, it wouldn't have been anything inflammatory.
Yeah,
like, they wouldn't have been saying anything potentially inflammatory.
She did not work on this project. She did not make any of these decisions. Does not come down on any side of an argument. It's just saying, like, she's not involved. It's just the things you are saying are not the case. She did not make those decisions.
Right. And that would have been two things. It would have been supporting her, being in her corner, even though they're not officially being in her corner. It would have been them coming out and saying, hey, back off. She didn't have anything to do with that. And two, it would have been them directly addressing negativity in their community, which for them is a big deal, especially for Nintendo and their persona. Their persona is safety online. It's one of the reasons that they don't do multiplayer online the same way that other games do. It's one of the reasons that they don't have things like voice chat in their games. It's because they specifically want to prevent people from being abusive when they're playing their games.
Yeah, I'm not sure these people who are doing this are their audience necessarily, though.
Oh, true. But what I mean is their behavior in this situation is completely counter to the behavior that they try to evoke from people playing their games.
Yeah,
right.
Like, I think this is very, very complex and very hard to make decisions on how you should act on this. And I think Nintendo could have handled it better, like we're saying. But I don't feel too negatively towards Nintendo for not like being able to figure out what they should be doing. Like this is a complex issue. I just hope that they figure out how to handle this better in the future.
See, the thing is, I do actually have a really big problem with the way that Nintendo handled this, to the point that I haven't downloaded Miitomo. I'm probably not going to. Like, I'm not going to be calling for people to publicly boycott Nintendo or anything like that, but I'm kind of
They
quietly...
they should do something better now. They should figure this out and
that's the thing,
try and resolve it at this point.
That's the thing, is that it feels to me like they think they have resolved this, and they absolutely haven't.
Yeah.
And also, it's way too late in the game for them to be doing something right now. They should have stepped up and done something sooner. And the fact that they haven't, and the fact that they're dealing with this in such just a cold business way, really kind of destroys my perception of Nintendo. Maybe they'll come around and they'll do something, and they'll come out and say something that like re-endears them to me. But at this point, I mean, this is a big deal, because honestly, like, I have been, I don't know how to say this. Like, a lot of the jobs that I've worked at, I've kind of been in a hot seat.
Yeah.
Right? For various reasons. And I know there have been times where I have been on the receiving end of corporations being corporations and not giving a shit about people. And I've been on the receiving end of someone standing up and kind of, like, defending me. Kind of like what we said, Nintendo could have done earlier. Like, it wasn't a huge overt thing, but it was just somebody standing up and saying, wait a second. This is a person, not some cog in a machine. Let's treat them like a human being. And both of those experiences were hugely influential and hugely impacted the way that I saw those companies even today.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fair to, especially where culture is at now, it's fair to take a single instance like this. And I wouldn't say like across the board, like, again, I don't expect other people to share my opinion on this, but for me, this is a big enough deal that, like, this will permanently alter the way that I see Nintendo. And it's something that I struggle with, because, like, I've been wanting to buy a Wii U for a while now, because there's a lot of games that I want to play, but yeah. I don't know that I'm going to now. And I don't know what to do, and what about all the other females in the game industry that deal with crap every single day, and one of the most influential companies in the world in this space has now basically said, yeah, we don't really care too much. Like, as an employee, like, rules are rules, and that's it.
Possibly, yeah. And again, this is where a little bit too the moonlighting comes into it, because it muddies the water a lot.
Well, and that's just difficult to talk about because we know so little. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, we know what was shared on Twitter. We know what was done publicly. We can know, about the paper that she wrote in college. We can know about all that stuff, but we can't really know about the moonlighting and stuff. And I know in general, most places don't allow moonlighting. And if they do, there are very strict, very well-defined things like non-compete clauses and things like that.
Yeah.
And no matter who you are, where you are in the organization, what level you're at, what you've contributed to the company, if you violate those rules, you're gone.
Yeah.
So maybe regarding that, maybe this is just really bad timing.
And like I'm saying, I would not be surprised at all if this kind of people calling in and saying that they're concerned about her just triggered management taking a look at what she was doing online and then finding out that she was moonlighting. Like, that seems really like what must have happened. So that explains the timing, that they're like, oh, this is what happened, because somebody was like, oh, well, let's look at what was going on here, and then they found some evidence that she was breaking some other rule, and they're like, well, there you go. And
that's fair. I would just want, I would want more transparency from Nintendo, which they've never been big on in any capacity ever.
Oh, Nintendo's the worst at transparency.
Yeah.
They're one of the absolute lowest.
Yeah.
They frequently get really, really low environmental impact kind of ratings. Not low as in they have low environmental impact,
but bad. Yeah.
They do badly on them.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they reveal no information about their manufacturing.
Yeah.
So they get scored really low just because they don't give out any information.
Yeah. Again, I think the kind of the state of this for me is that this has just made it too obvious to me that Nintendo is just a giant company. That's it.
Yeah. And I think this just plays into my larger concern about the way in which our private lives, our public lives, and our work lives are just becoming a confusing mess, and that there's no real definition between any of them at this point.
Yeah.
And that I think we need to reach some sort of cultural or legal agreement on where these things stand, like that posts that you make to Facebook are considered private, regardless of whether or not somebody can get access to them. Like somebody can get access to the inside of your house and figure out what you're doing inside your house, but that's private information.
Well, that's different on something like Twitter, though. The whole point of Twitter is to be public.
And Twitter is like public, but it is not the same as your work life. Twitter is your public life, but not your work life.
Yeah, I mean, this is, like you're saying, this is just incredibly difficult, though, because like you were saying earlier, she was a public spokesman for them.
Yeah.
And so specifically in that context, where is the boundary?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, for example, what if, I mean, like The Rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has, endorsement contracts and things with, like Under Armour, for example.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about wrestlers having to stay in character.
Oh, well, no, I mean, so like this is like part of the reason that The Rock has become so successful in the last few years is he's extremely good at using social media for his benefit.
Yes.
Well, what if he was, one of the reasons he does that is because like he doesn't really, I follow him on Twitter and, on Facebook and stuff, and he doesn't really post anything too terribly controversial. Like he has a very consistent voice in social media. And it's very like there are a few things that I think he's posted that are maybe slightly controversial, but they're all positive. What if he was to start tweeting things that were genuinely controversial, and that like some of his some of the companies that he's a spokesman for, like Under Armour, for example.
Yeah.
What if he started making them uncomfortable? It's his personal Twitter account, but it's also his brand. Like in a very real sense, like, people pay him to tweet things. So where is the boundary there? And like, how does someone respond? And that's a much more extreme example of something like this. I mean, obviously Alison Rapp is not The Rock, but
and with sports stars and other public figures who have these endorsements, it's, if they don't meet what the endorsement thinks they should meet, they drop them.
Well, and I mean, this is going back a ways, but the whole Tiger Woods thing.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Michael Phelps.
Oh yeah.
Michael Phelps too. Endorsements dropped because there are pictures of him smoking pot.
Yep. Or Tiger Woods with the whole thing with his infidelity with his wife and all that kind of stuff. I think they might abuse, whatever that was. Like him and Nike dropping him because of that.
Yeah, and that hardly seems unreasonable for Nike to do that.
Right. Yeah, it's just this, I think.
And
again,
there's a little bit of like, yeah.
Again, the distinction here is those were things that those people actually did.
Yes.
And they were negative things. They were very bad things. Like, well, I should say, they were things that our
Michael
culture
Phelps.
universally. Sorry, yeah. Not that. Like, I was thinking Tiger Woods. Like, Tiger Woods, it's something that our culture almost universally agrees, is bad. And because of that, we all understand that Nike dropped him.
What happens when we get to issues where it's like 50% of people think it's bad, though?
Right. Where it's not so clear.
Yeah.
Or like this, where people are accusing someone of saying things that they didn't say,
yeah.
or doing things that they have no responsibility for. Because then the issue is not the public-private life. The issue isn't actually the boundary of what's private and what's not, or what's work-related and what's not, because what's work-related and what's not had absolutely no bearing on what these people were saying. What they were saying was simply untrue.
Some of it.
And it was unfounded.
Certainly just referencing the paper was not untrue. Although, a little bit misrepresentational of the exact contents, but you could take the exact contents and still be offended by them, certainly in that case. And I'm not personally, but I definitely can see other people being upset by those.
So again, kind of to sum up, yeah, this is extremely sad for many reasons. I've got to say, what I have seen Alison Rapp tweeting through this whole thing, like I have a lot of respect for her positivity, her professionalism, the way that she's handled herself through this. I think has been really just deserving of a lot of respect.
Which is good too. Staying professional throughout this will mean that she probably can actually get another job.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine that it's going to be like that people are not going to be lining up to try to get her hired.
Yeah, that's also important in evaluating the veracity of any of these tweets.
Yeah.
Is that she can only say things that are professional at this point. Like,
yeah,
she can't do anything wildly unprofessional. Otherwise, she's going to have trouble finding employment anywhere else.
Right. Well, and her current behavior just does not validate the harassing things these people have been saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's in the middle of this shitstorm and she's still behaving in a respectful, professional manner. So yeah, I like, good on her. And again, massive respect for the way that she's handling things right now. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some good news about her and her job and where she's going to go, moving forward.
Best wishes to Alison Rapp.
Absolutely. So next topic is hopefully going to be much more fun to talk about. It's the
Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not versus, it's V.
Well, I mean, it is.
Yeah,
It's whatever.
Okay. First, we're going to talk without spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is the section for you. So we're going to tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll start talking spoilers, and we'll get more in depth to the movie.
Yes.
So first of all, let's just start with this. Should people see this movie?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
I agree. I really do think people should absolutely see this movie. It has gotten a ridiculously low rating. Last time I checked, it was 28% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because on IMDb user review and Rotten Tomatoes user review, it had about an 8 out of 10.
That I think is much more in line.
And I think that is absolutely more in line with what this film should be getting.
It's definitely not perfect, but it's an excellent film.
It is very good. And I think that it is doing a lot of things right. It is very much not a Marvel movie. And I'm so happy. There's like 3 Marvel movies a year at this point.
Yeah.
Thank God this isn't more of that.
Yeah. So really quick, let's step back and just go over like general, like what is the movie about, all that kind of stuff. And then we can get back into like the non-Marvel nature of it.
Well, first of all, it is a really, really amazing looking movie.
Oh God, yeah.
And I have been really surprised because
beautiful.
some people don't like it. They think it should be bright and colorful.
Yeah.
But it looks a lot like you could make a comic book out of this film by taking stills from every shot and like dropping the dialogue in it. You could make a comic book out of this movie.
Yeah.
It very much looks like the kind of definitely the darker toned Marvel comic books or DC comic books. Sorry.
Well, like
that it's based on
the old special editions that they used to do, where they would do like actual like painted cells for everything.
Yeah.
It wouldn't just be the typical cell shading. I mean, yeah.
And also there are some shots in there that are just like, damn it, I can't say that part because there are some shots that look exactly like, or very nearly like shots from the comic book that it is based off of, Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, so that's something we've definitely got to get into is like where they're pulling these versions of the characters from. Yeah. So basically like very, very high level kind of plot overview. If you've seen the previews, you'll know this. But if you haven't, basically the story is literally Batman fighting Superman. But the reason that they're fighting is what's interesting. So the movie features much more Batman than it does Superman. That did surprise me. But it's basically it explores.
That's not surprising at all because Superman's terrible and I hate him.
Well,
of course, they didn't put that much of him in because he's way less interesting than Batman.
So basically speaking, the movie picks up literally where the last Superman movie ended, where Man of Steel ended. Like the last big fight scene is where this movie starts, and it starts from.
And you've seen a little bit of this in the trailers.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne running straight towards the collapsing Wayne building.
Yeah. And so it starts where it picks up where Man of Steel left off, and then it basically explores, does a really deep exploration of who Batman is and kind of where he's at and why he has a problem with Superman.
Yeah.
And then I think it also does a really good job exploring who Superman is and kind of where he's at as well, and
he's
the problems that he has with Batman.
Also, it's worth noting that for those of you who were maybe concerned, Jesse Eisenberg is an amazing Luthor. And it is mentioned in this film, as has been mentioned previously, that he's not Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor's son, Alexander Luthor.
Yeah.
Which gives them a little bit more freedom with that character.
Yeah.
But he is brilliant. He's amazing. I love this Lex Luthor. And he comes off as actually somebody who's threatening, and actually somebody who is threatening because he's a smart, plotting villain. And he makes schemes.
Yes.
Not like Superman Returns, hey, I'm going to make some land and sell it to people, even though it's radioactive, because kryptonite is radioactive and gives people cancer. So I don't know why my kryptonite land would be worth anything. That movie doesn't make any sense. And Luthor's not a great villain in that. In this one, he is. You believe him. He's super amazing. All right.
Yes.
Go see it. Go see the film.
Yes. And also, to anyone that you talk to who will say that the trailers spoil the plot of the movie, they absolutely do not. Going into the movie, I was convinced that I already knew everything that was going to happen, and I absolutely did not. Go see the movie. It's amazing. From here on out, it's spoiler territory.
All right. Yes. So here's the first spoiler that I want to say, because this is really interesting. At the end of the film, there is in the credits, there's a big list of comic book creators who are credited with this film.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yes, and there are a whole bunch of names, but there are two names that are set apart from the other ones. The very first one is Frank Miller. The second one is Dan Jurgens, and then a big space, and then the rest. And that should tell you something about where this movie is going. I was actually pretty surprised by the fact that I was surprised about the big kind of spoil. Should we do that one first? Should we just mention it?
Oh, yes.
Somebody out there already knows, because I've just said those two credits. So everybody knew that this was Dark Knight Returns, was the basis of this. Because it's Superman versus Batman. Batman has the robot suit. It's Dark Knight Returns, just like Dark Knight Returns. But what it also is, as written by Dan Jurgens, the death of Superman.
Yeah.
And it actually ends with the death of Superman.
Yes.
Which should not have been a surprise. I mean, it has Doomsday in it. That's what he does. I think everybody made the assumption that they just wouldn't kill Superman off in the first one of these movies.
Well, and that's what I was thinking going in, and that's a big part of the reason that I was really upset with the movie before I even saw it, is because I was like, why would you put Doomsday in the movie if you're clearly not going to kill off Superman? That just doesn't make any sense. Because what I thought was going to happen is that Doomsday would be the reason that Batman and Superman would stop fighting, but I thought they would then defeat him. So yeah, and kind of building on the whole Doomsday death of Superman thing, I really like this version of Doomsday a lot.
Oh, he's so dumb in the comics.
I was not a big fan of him in the comics at all. Yeah.
And the whole Death of Superman comic is just not very good.
Superman is invincible unless he gets hit a lot by a really powerful person.
Yeah.
Then he can die. That's just stupid.
He just got punched so hard he died.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas in this movie, his death is the redeeming thing that makes him Superman. It actually serves a point.
Yeah.
His death is sacrificial. He is the reason that everyone survives and that everyone else lives.
Jesus.
And
he's Jesus.
Quite literally. Yeah, actually. I mean, in this, and the very, very end,
Yeah.
with the levitating rocks, maybe he's not actually dead. And if that's the case, I do
not.
actually well, I
In
do
the
actually have a
comic
problem
book,
with that.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, so it's the sun that gives him his power, and they very smartly bring that up in the movie, right when he's in outer space and he's clearly dead, and then the sun shines on him and he regenerates. That's great. However, at no point after he dies in the film is there any sunlight anywhere. They're literally in a cloud of, dust and stuff like that from the big fight when he dies, and he's impaled through the chest with the Doomsday's claw thing, his bone finger, whatever.
Yeah.
But from that point on, you never see the sun, and so at no point could he regenerate.
Yeah. In the comic books, he gets punched so hard. The thing is that it turns out he didn't die. That when Kryptonians get really, really wounded, they go into a Kryptonian healing coma.
Yeah.
Which looks like death, and then you come back.
Yeah.
And that might just be where they're going with this. It's hard to say.
And again, honestly, if that's it, then that I would have a big problem with, because that seems like a case of trying to have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
If Superman is actually dead,
that
would be far more powerful narratively to me than, oh, he's almost dead, but not really.
I assume he'll be back, but it's hard to say how exactly.
Me too. I mean, there's money-wise, there's no way that they could kill him off.
If he's just alive at the beginning of the next film, like he just immediately pops back up, that'll be pretty crappy.
Yeah.
They need
if they do like a search for Spock scenario.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They need to do search for Spock next.
Yeah.
Where it's
they're
just
there is some way to bring him back, but we have to do all these crazy things, and that's what the next movie is. That could be cool.
I mean, they brought Zod back in this film as an abomination, but they did bring him back to life.
Well, sort of. I mean, he's Doomsday. Yeah.
But there's even a moment where he looks at the statue of Superman and chuckles.
Oh yeah.
During their fight.
Yeah.
So it definitely seems like there's still some Zod.
A bit of Zod in there. Yeah.
In there.
So other big spoiler that
hold on. I wanted to say this about the Jesus metaphor, because
I
think this is really interesting, because when that there's the spear with the kryptonite head on it. And that is kind of the plot point in this. It is both how Batman is going to defeat Superman, and it's how Superman eventually defeats Doomsday by taking that spear and stabbing Doomsday with it, which, since he's close enough to do it, also makes him vulnerable and he dies.
Right.
But that is very much like Jesus carrying the cross, where he picks up that spear and he is under the weight of the kryptonite, which weighs him down, and it's the only thing that can, and he is struggling. That is very much the Jesus allegory. And the way that this exists in this plot, and I expect it will continue to be an important plot point because of the future visions that Batman has, gives that, and the fact that it's a spear, makes that spear a lot like the lance of Longitus, the spear that pierced Jesus' side and is said to give invulnerability and great power to anyone who holds it.
Interesting.
So I think there's some things going on with that, and I think that we'll see that spear come back and be important later.
Yeah. So stepping back a little bit in the movie, there was another spoiler moment that I didn't see coming at all, and that was the bombing in the Capitol building. Literally, I mean, I expected something to happen in that scene, but I did not until the moment that guy looked at Superman. I did not see it coming, and I was like, "Holy shit, what's gonna boom?" And then everybody blows up.
I expected that the moment Luthor was like, "I got you this wheelchair," I was like, it's
oh wow,
it's
I didn't see it at all.
It's gonna. I didn't know it was gonna be the bombing at the courthouse, but I was like, that's gonna be like a device that kills Superman in it or something. And then they were like, here's the courthouse, and I was like, he's gonna explode. And that was my low point in just not liking Superman. I don't like Superman though as a rule, so it doesn't get in the way of enjoying this film for me, because I find him to be kind of an unlikable character, just generally. But where he has this face, like he feels really sorry for himself after all these people fucking died. Like that feels, he always seems to be like, kind of like, oh, everything is terrible for me. All these people die, and it's terrible that I have to endure all these people. Like, gosh, man.
Oh, see, I got something totally different from that.
Yeah.
That scene in that shot. To me.
And also, afterwards, he says to Lois Lane, he's like, I'm worried that the reason that I didn't see that coming is because I wasn't looking for it. And I was like, what does that mean, Superman? Does that mean that you kind of suspected, but you didn't look because you wanted those people to die because they were like questioning you? Is that what I was supposed to get out of that statement from Superman?
I don't think so. So I think one of the things that I really like about this movie and the way that it portrays Superman is it's very much kind of and so one of the things I know that a lot of people don't like about the way that this movie portrays Superman is that he's far too fallible.
Yeah.
He's not perfect. He doesn't have the, he doesn't know what to do all the time. He's not the Boy Scout.
He should not be invulnerable like the 70s kind of stuff.
Well, so the thing is, so with both of the scenes that you mentioned, we'll go through them in order. So in the court scene, like the shot afterwards where he's like standing there in the fire, what I got from that was more that he's like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, am I actually helping anyone? Or like what is the balance? Like, at what point do people dying because of me outweigh the people that live because of me? Like, how much needs to happen before what I do and who I am is no longer valuable? And I thought that was a really powerful moment because, I mean, that I think is something that Superman would actually grapple with. Like, unless he was an omnipresent, omniscient God, there's no way he could save everyone. And with someone like Lex Luthor, who's trying to take him down and incredibly powerful and has essentially unlimited resources, something like the courthouse bombing would happen. Like, Luthor would do that. Yeah. And it's entirely reasonable to me that Superman, especially a new Superman, a Superman who hasn't been around for decades and decades, who's been doing this maybe for a few years, maybe not even that long, like a few months
ish,
3 years. Like okay, still fairly new. And more than that, who would train him? Who would he learn from? Like, where would he learn to do all this stuff? Where would he learn how to listen to everyone all at the same time? Like that is why. And again, kind of going to the second scene that you talked about. What I got from that was he literally like didn't see it coming. Like, he didn't know to look for it. You know what I mean? And I saw that as kind of his, like, him verbalizing his internal monologue, like, should I be doing this? Like, am I up to this? Am I really the God that these people think that I am? Or are they valuing me too highly? Like, basically, did I step into shoes that I can't actually fill? And then on top of that, you have Batman coming along who's saying, like, no, the problem is you can fill those shoes, and that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
No one should be able to do that. No one should have that much power because you, just like everyone else, are fallible and you fuck things up and you don't see things coming and you have no right to be in that position, but you actually have the power, so that makes you a threat.
I think that scene too, also funny. The peach tea on the desk.
Oh yeah,
both terrifying and funny because that's Lex Luthor has this relationship with that senator throughout the film where she kind of thinks he's a joke. He's this weird, eccentric man, and he's just kind of jokey, and he can't talk straight all the time. He gets confused about what he's saying, and then she's sitting there in that courtroom, and there's that glass that says grandma's peach tea on it, and she looks and he's not in that seat, and she starts shaking.
Oh, and she's like, shit just got fucking real.
And that's the point.
This dude is not messing around. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the point too, I think, for the audience, where you're like, oh dang, like, he's not fucking around. He's just gonna kill whoever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's the scene earlier too that I really liked where they're kind of Mickey Mousing him. They're playing the music to how he's like walking, as he's entering the crash site of the Kryptonian ship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very like each footstep is like to the music. And that scene too, you're like, oh my God, this Luthor is amazing. He's wearing like, everybody else is in like a hazmat suit. He's got like this like pastel suit on. is great. I love Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor in this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So so moving on to I actually just today I read an article on Kotaku talking about Batman v Superman. And the title of the article, I think, is brilliant. And it says, Batman v Superman isn't like other superhero films, and that's why it's great.
Exactly,
and this,
yeah.
Like, the article goes to what you were saying earlier, that this is kind of the anti-Marvel superhero movie.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think part of the reason that so many people that hate this movie, they hate it because it is not a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
exactly.
they want superhero movies to be what Marvel does. And what Marvel does is great. I like all the Marvel superhero movies. I love them for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I think they're really great. What this article touches on, I had never actually thought about before. And it goes into some, like, we'll put it in the show notes, and it goes into some really good detail and some very detailed thoughts on exactly why the Marvel movie universe, or I think it calls it the Marvel movie method. The Marvel method is what it calls it. Yeah. So this article goes into why the Marvel method really probably isn't as great as we think that it is. It goes back to Spider-Man, the Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 1 and 2. And it says that all of the Marvel movies since then, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, the Spider-Man movies are Fox.
Oh, true. But they're Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
It's a Marvel character. And so Marvel, the studio, has basically been following the template set by Sam Raimi in the Spider-Man movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They are all thematically the same. The reason that it works is because, well, we like that formula. We like the balance of funny and action, and it strikes a good, there's a very delicate balance between things being serious and lighthearted, but all of the moments that we remember or that get quoted or that get memed from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're all funny.
Yeah, and this movie is funny, but it is always darkly,
it has funny
sadly
moments.
Funny.
Yeah, there are a couple jokes in the movie, I think maybe like 2. And there are a couple things that are funny-ish.
There's more than that. I think there's a good number of jokes, and not all of them are the kind of verbal jokey jokes, but like scenes where Alfred is talking to Batman or Bruce Wayne, Batman, and he's out doing something, and Alfred is just like, and he just like throws back a glass of whiskey. And it's just the tiredness of that gesture of how he's just like fed up with that. Like that's a joke. It's not
I see what you mean.
It's not the same kind of joke that Marvel goes in for.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, it's a situational comedy, kind of just a setup joke.
Well, and grounded much more in the characters. And I think that's another thing about this movie is that these aren't necessarily, I think, especially with Superman, these aren't necessarily the versions of the characters that I think a lot of people were expecting. I mean, Batman, yeah, like we all knew what we were getting with Batman, but it's not necessarily what people were expecting for Superman. However, the movie so completely commits to its versions of these characters, and does such a good job with them that honestly, whether or not this is what I was expecting really doesn't matter. And also, there is precedent for this version of Superman in the DC universe. Like Zack Snyder didn't pull this version of Superman out of thin air. There have been several lines of the Superman comics that have followed this version of Superman. Maybe it's not what a lot of comic fans like. Maybe it's not the version that they prefer, but there is precedent in the universe for this version of Superman. So, like, and I've heard a lot of people saying that needs to stop because it's not true. And the film is also very, very confident in the way that it will be watched. And it gives a lot of credit to the viewer.
Yeah.
Like, for example, and I said this in a review that I posted.
You know what? There's one scene where it absolutely, I thought, what was it? There's a scene where they flash back to earlier in the film. Oh, when Superman's like, Martha shouldn't die. And then they flash back to remind you that Batman's mother's name is also Martha.
Oh, yeah.
That was a scene where I was like, shut up, stop doing that. I remember. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot.
I thought that too.
Thank you, movie. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
We remember that. Thanks.
Yeah. And something that actually really, really angers me about the way that, like, what I've seen some people saying with this movie is they're trying to play off the fact that Batman doesn't kill Superman because their mothers are both named Martha. Like, they're like, oh, that's stupid and silly and whatever. Here's the thing. It's not.
It's also not the reason why Batman doesn't kill him. The reason Batman doesn't kill him is because he explains what's happening. And then Batman. And they kind of cut away for that scene, which is fine. But the reason he pauses.
Here's the thing. And here's what I think a lot of people, this betrays the superficial appreciation that I think a lot of people have for these characters.
Yeah.
Think about this. One of the people that has been more influential in your life than anyone else.
Yeah. It's the armor piercing thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like it's not the name. It's not the name. It's the fact that Batman realizes Superman had a mother. He has a mother. Superman is not this alien thing that has no idea what humanity is like. Because that's the big problem that Batman has with Superman, is he said, you're not a man. You don't know what it means to be a man. And as soon as he realizes, wait a second, you have a mother? You have a mother that you love? You have a mother that's in danger, that might be killed by some criminal? That hits really close to home, and it humanizes him.
I think kind of what Batman was saying when he's saying you're not a man. He's saying you are now, though. There's a bit of that in that, because he's like, this is fear. This is what men feel. Like, kind of because he's been depowered in that scene.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And I think that comes back, too, because this is the kind of thing where Batman has brought him down to our level. I did think there were a couple of issues. One, why did we need to give Superman a motivation right at the end? It seemed like Superman had set up a motivation for fighting Batman up until that point. And then Luthor was like, hey, surprise, I'm here. I'm going to reveal that I'm part of this plot. And also I kidnapped your mother.
Well, partly because I think for Batman and Superman to fight, there would, like, the only reason that Batman or that Superman really had was this vague idea that he didn't like that Superman was too violent, and that he didn't like the way that Batman was
too violent. Batman was too violent, and that's why Superman didn't like him. Yeah. I think it justifies the conflict beginning, and then the fact that Batman is attacking Superman justifies the continued fight, as it does in this, basically. Just getting Superman to that place where then Batman starts fighting him is the important part, and I think we could have skipped the Lex Luthor bit and just had, Batman throws up the bat signal. Superman had just talked to him and been like, hey, don't light that bat signal again. Don't show up. And then also throwing away the spear, just dropping it on the floor. What the fuck was that, man?
Throwing away the spear.
Oh, yeah, just dropping it on the floor. After they're like, oh, everything's fine now. Batman's just like, I'll just drop this over here on the floor somewhere and then walk away. Not like this is an incredibly rare and valuable piece of something that may be important later. And I think
that's fair.
Part of this, too, is when Batman is like, hey, this is the most important thing in my life. And Alfred is like, you've been kicking crime's ass for 30 years. And he's like, those are just regular criminals. This is completely different. Because what we thought we were getting was an older, really experienced Batman. But I think what we got was somewhere in the middle. We didn't get a new Batman, but we also got a Batman who didn't know that people had superpowers until 3 years ago when Superman showed up. And then he only knew about Superman from that point on. So this is a Batman who has never fought anyone with any sort of powers before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some inexperience there in his ability to deal with that.
Yeah.
Also, Batman could have just killed Superman immediately. If he has the grenade launcher, the single shot grenade launcher. If that was an M4 with a grenade launcher on the bottom, he could have just fucking shot the grenade and then riddled Superman with bullets.
Yes, but I actually think that made sense for his character, because it wasn't just that Batman wanted to defeat Superman.
Yeah.
It was that he wanted to tear him down.
Yeah, and
there had to be a process to that.
Yeah, it's set up a lot more in the Dark Knight Returns. It's set up better because Batman's goal is not to kill Superman in that. He's going to fight Superman, but his whole goal is just to make Superman realize that he can kill him and Superman needs to fuck off, kind of thing.
Oh.
Like, that's the comic book. Because the way that the comic book ends is Batman is absolutely right there, ready to kill Superman, and then he fakes a heart attack. And he has a funeral, and he lets everyone think that he's dead. And his plan is to make Superman think he's dead, too, but he kind of maybe doesn't achieve that, but he's like, it's fine, because I nearly killed him, and he knows that I could have killed him. And that's where this ends, because this is in Dark Knight, it's a world where all superheroes have been outlawed except for Superman, who works for the government.
Interesting.
It's a more Watchmen kind of universe, and Batman is like, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm going back. I'm returning to being Batman. That's why it's Dark Knight, Batman Returns, whatever it is. Dark Knight Returns.
No, Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah. Which is a little bit better set up in how that ends. And how he kind of just beats him for a while.
So one more thing that I want to say before we move on to the final piece, which is Final Fantasy 15, is Gal Gadot and Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Oh,
and
my
also,
God.
Wildly thankful that no one really has... that Batman's origin is not explained that much. It's explained that his parents died, and that's why who he is, but it's not explained how he became Batman. And it is also not explained why Wonder Woman is there. Or at all.
Yeah. She just like
Wonder
shows
Woman.
up and starts like kicking everybody's ass. Like that was, and that was something else that I really liked too. Like, so first of all, when I saw her like actually start fighting, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then I was like, where the fuck is her lasso? Like that's her
Lasso's
thing.
there too.
But then of course, and I'm like, oh my God, like this movie just is fucking amazing.
Sword and Shield Wonder Woman is cool too. I like that.
Oh
I
yeah,
like that version.
Yeah. Well, and like she was having fun. Like that again. This
She's
movie,
an Amazon. She's
I think,
a warrior.
has. Yes, this movie has such a deeper understanding of the characters than I think most people give it credit for.
She also can't fly in this incarnation.
I don't know about that, because she was zipping around pretty hardcore.
This was something that I read that like Zack Snyder or creative team were saying that she can't fly in this version.
Maybe she can like, just jump really far.
Yeah, she leaps really far or whatever, but she can't fly, but she is the strongest fighter in this universe.
Yeah, which was made pretty clear when she cut his fucking arm off.
Yeah, she's just cutting him up.
Yeah.
She doesn't really at any time seem to be terribly threatened by Doomsday.
Yeah.
Although she can't do shit about Doomsday because he just regenerates, she also doesn't seem to be in danger from Doomsday.
Yeah, and that was...
Batman looks like when Doomsday shows up, it's pretty clear that Batman could just die at any second.
Oh yeah, so out of his element.
He's a regular person.
He's so done. Yeah. Yep.
But he has like a few vital moments of, he shoots the grenade and he can still survive and get away from Doomsday.
Yep.
And he's still
which I think was a really important counter to the scene before. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I thought the whole idea of the whole way that they set Batman and Superman against each other and then dealt with all of that, I thought was really, really well done. So yeah, I like, again, to sum it all up, I mean, at this point, I guess people who haven't seen it probably aren't listening because they didn't want the spoilers, but
one or two maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I, again, definitely recommend seeing this movie. And I'm interested to see how well it does this weekend because it made so much money last weekend. It had the 5th highest opening ever.
And then it went way down.
Yes, exactly. So it fell off like a 55% drop from Friday to Sunday. I know I'm going with Aiden to see it tomorrow. So there's going to be some people who are going to see it. And I know one of my friends, longtime friends, Corey, is going to see it again this weekend as well. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how it does this weekend.
It was very long.
See, I actually disagree with that. I think, I guess time-wise it was pretty long, but I don't feel like it was too long.
No, I don't feel like it was too long either. I didn't feel the wait, except that I bought a large soda. And towards the end, I was kind of like, oh my God, like I'm enjoying this, but please end because I have to pee so bad. Let me out. But yeah, should have included that before the spoilers. Be like, don't buy a large soda. It's
That's right.
2 hours and 33 minutes long.
You got to plan the drinking. So, oh man, I should have. Oh, God, I don't know. I don't know if we should bring this up now, but this would be like a perfect time to bring up the renting movies when they come out. like the same day they're released. Have you heard about this?
No.
Man, I don't know if we should. Maybe we'll save it for next week.
All right.
Yeah. We'll talk about it offline, and we'll save it for next week. But it's a super interesting story, news piece from recently.
Also, because this episode's kind of long, we're gonna move Final Fantasy to next time.
Yes, because we do respect your time, and we don't want to take up too much of it. So you got something to look forward to next week?